I don't think that's his boss.
He was there. Welcome back, some of you. Welcome to the new ones, to our regular Board of Education meeting. We do have a quorum. Maria's with us there.
Indra's joining online too.
And Indra's gonna join. Oh, there she is too. Okay. Excellent. And we are gonna start with awards and recognitions.
Yeah, if I could have Danny join me up front. So one of the things I had the pleasure of doing last week was attend our statewide Student Success and Retention Conference, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in my monthly update. But one of the many great events that occurred at the conference was an awards presentation. And not surprisingly, and well-deserved recipient of the Unsung Hero Award was RCC's very own Danny Crouch. Danny is our college registrar, and the reason she received the Unsung Hero Award, well, there were many reasons because of her unsung work, but she's contributed very meaningfully to not one, but two SIS implementations at the college. She has contributed a lot towards statewide efforts around credit for prior learning, our returning adult populations. But Danny has been a longtime stalwart at our college, and we are very lucky to have her. And we are so glad that her colleagues recognize her contributions to both our college and to statewide efforts. So please help me in recognizing Danny for her work.
Congratulations.
If you know anything about unsung heroes, they don't want to say anything.
Yeah, I don't want to say
You weren't right.
Rachel, do we have any public comment?
No.
Then we will move into our information presentation. Kristen.
Yes, so Kristen Diggs is audit partner from Eide Bailey, our auditors, and she is here to present the audit.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Okay. Do you want me sharing the financial statements or do you just want me to just talk about them? I can do either. So,
Why don't you share them?
okay.
We sent them electronically to everyone. So.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Do you guys have what looks like an audit opinion?
We do.
All right, we're in business then. Okay, so let me make sure I get on the right page. Oh, not that one. Okay. So thank you everyone for letting me present to you guys the results of the 2024 audit. Like Lisa said, I am the audit partner over the engagement. I've worked with you guys a lot over the years and have really seen you grow, and excited to be here today to talk about this. So with the audit process, you know, similar to what I've talked to you guys about in prior years, this is a process that we start in late spring. It's something that it is a little bit drawn out. We go through and we start talking with management about what's changed during the year. We talk through, you know, how those changes are going to impact the financial statements, the testing, if there's any new federal programs or anything like that. And so based upon all that, we develop an audit plan for the year. During the summer, we come in and we do testing over the federal programs. We do a risk-based approach. So what this means is we'll focus more on your bigger programs, like student financial aid will be something that's looked at every single year. And we've rotated in the past, you know, your HERF funds that you had because it was high risk with all the COVID money. And there's other programs like TRIO and So Hope in prior years that we've looked at just based upon the rotation. And then we come back out in the fall after that testing is kind of, for the most part, completed. We wrap up our student financial aid testing and any other programs that we took a look at. And then usually in October, we do our testing over the financial statements. So based upon all of that, we're able to issue several different opinions that I'll kind of go over today. The first one is our opinion over the financial statements themselves. So based upon the testing that we perform, so we do a lot of analytics, we do a lot of detailed testing where we're pulling various samples and looking at them. And we're looking at all the balances to make sure that they make sense. We're confirming different amounts with outside parties and everything. So based upon all that, we're able to give an opinion over the financial statements. So this section right here, the very first one on page 21 of the PDF, if you guys have the financial statements, or page 14 of the report, is our independent auditor's report. And so based upon all the testing that we performed, we're able to issue an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion over the financial statements. So this basically says, based upon the information that you see here, we're comfortable issuing an unmodified opinion. So bravo to everyone. It is no small feat. This is a 150-page report, and it does take a lot to get through, and it is prepared by management. The other opinion that we issued in the current year, with the state of Oregon, you are required to go through and do certain testing related to Oregon state regulations. So we have to go make sure that at the different fund levels, there's no issues related to, any budget overages, and different Oregon state regulations that we have to make sure that RCC is in compliance with. Based upon our testing, we did not come across anything. So this is another unmodified opinion. So there is nothing to note in this opinion. Okay. The other opinion, the third opinion that we issue 4. So on the third opinion that we issued, the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting. This opinion, it is an unmodified opinion. But this is where we have the opportunity to talk about if we would have found any audit adjustments, any past adjustments as a result of testing, if there were any breakdowns in internal control during, like our walkthrough procedures or our other testing that we did. Like I said, it is an unmodified opinion, but we did come across something. We did come across 2 adjustments in the current year that we talk about on page 140 that we consider to be a material weakness in internal control. And what this is in finding 2024-1, there were 2 audit adjustments that we found as a result of our audit procedures. And what happened with these, and the reason they're material weakness is simply because of the dollar amount. And so because the dollar amount is kind of big, and so we were required to report them as a material weakness. But what happened was at year end, there was a conversion over to the new ERP system for RCC. And with that, different processes work differently with different systems. And so with the new system, there were some entries that were made because that's what you had to do under RogueNet, but that's not what you had to do under the new system. And because we found them as a result of our audit procedures, we're required to report on them. So the first one was basically a gross up of the statement of financial position related to accounts payable and prepaid expenses of about $351,000. So we had to reduce both accounts payable and prepaid expenses. The one that was the big one that caused the material weakness relates to an overstatement of accounts receivable and advanced revenue of about 4.9 million. And so essentially what this did was it just grossed up the statement of financial position, both on your accounts receivable and your advanced revenue side. There's no impact to the income statement, but because of the dollar amount, because we found it as a result of our audit procedures, we were required to report it as a finding. The last opinion that we have is our independent auditor's report on compliance on the major federal programs. The program that we took a look at in the current year related to student financial aid, we weren't required to look at any other programs. It is an unmodified opinion. We did have one finding though related to student financial aid, and it was related to enrollment reporting. There was one student where the information that was reported to NSLDS was different than the support when we took a look at it. I will say this is an area where we always have findings. It is deemed a high-risk area by the Department of Ed. And so we are required to test on the higher end for all the samples. And so with that, we were required to report it. So it was a significant deficiency in internal control. They did have a finding last year related to Graham Leach Bliley, and they've been able to correct that in the current year. So that's not a repeat finding. We just had the one related to enrollment reporting and then the one related to audit adjustments. With that, any questions so far on the financial statements? I'll just have one more quick thing to go over. Nope. Okay. So one other thing that I am required to let you guys know about, and this is a past adjustment that we have every year. Management goes through and basically has a cutoff period on their accounts payable or invoices that come in, so they can get the books closed timely. In the current year, so what they do is they just track all the invoices, and then we usually pass on this adjustment every year. The amount of that pass adjustment for the invoices that came in after they closed the books was about 151,000. So basically expenses were understated by 151,000 and accounts payable was understated by 151,000. So it wasn't significant to us. It's not a deficiency or anything. It's just something we're required to let you know. So I will say, based upon the financial statements and everything and working with everyone at RCC, everyone has been awesome to work with, and we really appreciate everyone's efforts in getting through this. With the ERP implementation, it was no small feat to get through the audit this year. That's why we're presenting to you in January versus December when we've previously reported, but we really do appreciate everyone's efforts in getting through the audit this year. So with that, I'm done, unless anyone else has any questions.
There has this thinking face on though.
I will point out, you do have a State of Oregon Plan of Action letter in the action items later to address the finding, and so I think Lisa's prepared to speak to that either now or when we get to that letter, if there are any questions while we've got Kristen here.
I just have one, and it's kind of a follow-on, I guess, to what I've been, asking the last couple of meetings. Once the ERP is fully in place, is that going to make all of the processes? I mean, obviously you had in transitioning from RogueNet to Jenzabar, I can see how that could happen. Once you get fully implemented with Jenzabar, you shouldn't have those holes anymore, or does their system closing the books and then having some invoices come in afterwards? I mean, basically that's going to happen. I don't know.
Happens every,
Yeah, I don't know.
People
how
just
you-
don't get their invoices in on time and we have to close.
Sure, that's right.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to do is anticipate, once you get the new ERP system fully implemented, what kind of problems are you anticipating? Or do you think everything's going to go away and it's going to be just sunshine and roses?
I think we'll have different controls in place next year than we had this year. The ERP is different in the way we record, especially around the way we record revenue. You'll remember in RogueNet, it automatically recorded, and in Jenzabar, it doesn't, right? You have to actually post it, and which is amazing. That's what we've always wanted. I also think the confusion around how the system works, trying to close the books in August, September, October, as we're really just getting into an ERP, it gets very confusing. And so they'll be different. I can't say it'll be perfect, but we should not receive these findings again.
Is Lisa, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but part of this is attributable to, because of the conversion, we had a blackout period where we weren't on either system because you had to convert behind the scenes. And I think that there was work that the team was trying to do ahead of or behind that blackout period that we wouldn't have just because we've got the continuity of a system moving forward.
What I'm taking away from all this is there were no missing dollars or whatever that we need to be concerned about. It's just whether they're in the right pot or whether they're consistently in the right pot, and I totally understand it. So we're good.
Maria or Andrea, any questions from you?
No questions. Thanks so much.
No questions.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Kristen. We appreciate your time tonight.
Yep, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, we are moving into college reports. Is Christian online?
No,
All right, Christian, are you there?
Hello everyone, sorry about that, was loading in.
Welcome. We're right on time for your report.
Thank you very much, everyone. Starting with wildly important goal number 2, student success. We hit objective number 5, use effective student engagement strategies to increase student persistence. ASG had the civil discourse workshop on both the Table Rock campus and the Redwood campus. Table Rock had very little attendance. According to our report, we only had 3 staff members attending. On Redwood campus, however, we were very popular. There was about 15 different students and staff, 3 students, and I believe the rest were staff. Since the other 2 campuses did not see too much interest, we're unsure if we should continue to host this specific workshop or table them for a time. We are discussing other types as well, though, and see what is more popular, what other people would like to listen to. Moving on to WIG number 3, building community. We had the Riverside Join Fest and Club Fair. We collaborated with Rogue Community Health to offer a combined clubs fair and community resource fair with a free showing of the documentary Join or Die. The collaboration brought 10+ community organizations and 5 clubs together on the Riverside campus and provided a good opportunity for students to connect further with their community and the campus itself. We provided free meal tickets to students who visited multiple organizations, providing around 22 meals. The event was scheduled to repeat a couple weeks ago on the 6th, but it's been rescheduled to this Thursday due to the snow closures. We have an ongoing event with the Gathering a Community Resource, which is a project I've been heading. I'm currently waiting on all 3 of them to continue to provide other resources. Rogue Community Health, the Mid-Rogue Foundation, and the Fair Housing Council of Oregon are the people I've been able to reach out to. I'm still missing some printable resources from them, and what they have sent, I'm kind of wondering if I can put them on the campus. A lot of them are packets of information, so I'm currently working with Angel at Rogue Central to determine what I can actually pass around or keep in our information spots. I initially had planned to post a lot of what they gave me on the community boards. Moving on to WIG 4, Institutional Excellence, we have the OCCSA Revival. Alito Love, former ASG Vice President of Engagement, has successfully revived the Oregon Community College Student Association, along with students from 10+ Oregon community colleges. Finn Franklin, my Vice President of Governance, is the official voting student delegate to the OCCSA for RCC. Excuse me for all the stutters.
You're doing just fine.
Yeah.
We also have the OSA replacement. Representative Hudson reached out to RCC to put together a sort of kitchen cabinet type of meeting. In the absence of the OSA, Rep. Hudson and his team put together an unofficial council to go over legislation in a similar manner called a kitchen cabinet meeting. Various students and staff from Oregon colleges were invited, including ASG RCC, and discussed 3 legislative orders. No votes were made as it was not a voting body. Rep. Hudson and his team shared the work Hudson is sponsoring or co-sponsoring and will be providing updates on legislation relevant to Oregon students. The first meeting included a brief training on accessing and navigating the OLIS, Oregon Legislative Information System. We also have a minor update on the student-initiated fee. I believe not much has changed except for the number of signatures. I believe it's increased to 166 from, I believe it was 153 in the past when I last took a look at it. Still ongoing, and we're still in the works on how to implement it and what to do when we move forward. We do have an officer recruitment update. Lastly, we've had several applications for various officer roles. However, we are still waiting for either completed student signatures or follow-up emails to move on with the appointment process. We are beginning recruitment for spring term election as well to replace graduating officers. And that's all from me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from Faculty Association? Faculty Senate? No, Classified Association. All right, moving on to board reports. We'll start with the Executive Committee, and it looks like you're it.
I guess so. Well, as usual, the executive committee talked a little bit about the agendas for the work session and the board meeting itself. Spent some time talking about the audit report and the findings, things that you've just heard from Kristen. We talked a little bit about the fact that Randy's Randy and the E-team are working with the capital projects plan. We may hear a little bit about that later on in the meeting. And the other issue that's also on our agenda this evening, we talked a little bit about the compliance issues around DEI and how the college needs to change some board procedures and plans, et cetera, to correspond. Basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, but what I think I took away from our discussion was that we're essentially going to revert back to what the process was back in 2020.
That's particularly tied to Title IX. Yeah, there's some
Sure.
other things I'll probably touch base on my update, but yeah.
That was most of our discussion.
Right, thank you. Board Outreach Committee.
Well, I have a presentation tomorrow at the Grants Pass Rotary Club. And I will mention every one of it in the room. So, no, it'll be more like, we'll talk about a little about the history of RCC, how we came out of COVID. A lot of the information I got was garnered from last month's presentation to us about the numbers. Talk about numbers and talk about challenges. And we know there's a lot of challenges out there right now. So that's kind of where I am. I have a gig coming up and I'm waiting to talk to Jonathan about who's going to do that one. But that's over in Jackson County. So,
All right, how about OCCA, OSBA?
you want to talk about the legislative call today, or were you there?
Not today's, no, we were,
I wasn't either. Well,
we were in the
we're here.
workshop.
Yeah, but I do have the notes.
Okay,
The priority, they rank bills by how important they are, OCA feels they are. And then the number one that we talked about today was Senate Bill 5505, which raises the capital construction cap to $14 million, which has direct impact on us. There's a lot of these bills that have a direct impact on us in different
that one
ways.
actually has a lot of impact on us.
This has a lot of impact on us, but I think the rest of these do. There's one that require 65% of the class to be taught by full-time staff. There's one that requires part-time staff, full-time staff to be paid the same hourly rate. There's provide a waiver for tuition fees and costs for veterans and the children. There's a lot of dollar signs attached to all of these things. And hang on, because I have a funny feeling it's going to be interesting legislative sessions. So that's my report.
Well, thank you. Andra or Maria for the Foundation Board Liaison Report.
I'll let Indra share. I wasn't able to make the meeting.
I'm so sorry in a car right now, but I'll be there soon. I don't have anything new to report with the foundation.
Okay, thank you. How about Maria or Roger on the President Performance Review Committee?
Nothing new at this point.
Can I chime in real quick?
You sure can. Absolutely.
I put on there, I just want everyone to know that they're going to be getting the evaluation form in the next 2 weeks for Randy's evaluation. So it'll be before the next board meeting. So I just wanted to bring it up. Keep an eye on your emails for the evaluation.
Thank you. All right, we are ready for you.
All right, well, this month's report, as I gave you a heads up on my weekly update the week prior, is verbal because amongst all my travels, I was unable to put together a written report. I started the week off last week with attending the National Legislative Summit in DC, which was a very interesting place and time to be in DC. The position that we took as community colleges, and this was put on by Association of Community College Trustees, ACCT, that we took forward was the lack of clarity that we're currently receiving around the executive orders that are coming from the federal government, that are expectations from agencies and Oregon state law. And so there are a number of instances where the federal requirements and Oregon state requirements are inconsistent. That is not getting lost on anybody, but what that means and what guidance we receive is yet to be determined. As a matter of fact, there's a meeting scheduled for 7:30 tomorrow morning for college presidents. I will unfortunately be unable to attend because both Rick at SOU and I will be attending at the chamber meeting. So Jamie will be attending in my stead. So the Higher Ed Coordinating Commission recognizes that there's inconsistency in expectations, and we're trying to figure out, how can we be compliant? Never mind adding on top of this the reality of our requirements and commitments we have with our accrediting body. And so some schools are in the thick of much of their work that is tied to their commitment around certain objectives that may be inconsistent with government agency expectations. You don't have to look any further than what Roger referenced a little bit ago, and is later on our agenda, is the Title IX requirements are being changed and going back to effective immediately. The 20 guidance that we received from the Department of Ed when Donald Trump was last president of the United States. So we're dealing with that kind of quick and responsiveness, making sure that our policies are compliant. But there are some very specific things, such as we just received last Friday a Dear Colleague letter from the Office of Civil Rights around DEI programs and how the Office of Civil Rights is interpreting DEI work and expectations on us around that. And that is very inconsistent with what the state of Oregon expects from us. We receive funds from both. We receive funds through federal financial aid, specifically our Title IV funds, and the question has been asked. So basically, it's been framed by the federal Department of Ed that if all contractors must be compliant. If you're a recipient of federal grant monies, you are defined as a contractor. So that was one of the questions. Are we a contractor if we don't have a contract? Well, you are if you receive Title IV funds. So we recognize that we have a compliance responsibility there. State of Oregon has very specific criteria set on us, and we are also a recipient of community college support funds. And so we are stuck in this. What do we do to serve both of those entities and their expectations? It is confusing. We have had conversations on campus around if members of specific federal agencies show up on campus, how do we respond? How do we react? We sent some guidance across campus around what that could or should look like. But one of the things our campus community thrives on is clarity and consistency. And as leaders right now, we're unable to deliver that. So we have to recognize that. We have to tell them we'll do what we can when we can. The guidance we are receiving from OCCA legal right now is to not rush into and overreact on anything. Let's be intentional on how we're going, but we are being encouraged to go in and review what is currently being put out by the federal government and how it might impact us. And so the way that impacts Rogue Community College and our board is that you can very well anticipate seeing some urgency around some some board policy requests for example, we're bringing forward for a first reading tonight, changes under our Title IX policy. We don't typically ask for approval on first reading. We're gonna ask for it tonight because this is going back to a compliance that we once had, and it is very clear from the Department of Ed that we need to be following this, regardless of what our board policy is. So that type of thing where we say, how come we're not following our typical standards on due diligence and timing is being driven by the current state of change at the federal government. I suspect, I have confidence that our state will respond accordingly in a way that we can at least be consistent in our adherence. So if that means that Oregon State needs to change some things to make us compliant, then we can anticipate that. We're not there yet. So I just try to pride myself on not sending you guys, oh my gosh, here we are, this is what's going on, communications. That may be a sign of the times, though. You may get some, okay, little more urgent than normal. We're pivoting here. You might see this at this next month's board meeting. And so we just ask for some grace and understanding on that. I am confident that with the support we receive from OCCA, with the support we receive from ACCT, we will be making informed and good decisions for our campus community. So that's a little bit on kind of what happened first part of the week, but really what's been happening on the last several weeks. And in order to support this effort, we have historically have had a standing weekly legislative call within OCCA, particularly during long session, but also during short. We do it during session. And so that's been going on to deal with the state legislative matters. Pat gave a little bit of an update on that. I'll highlight an item from that here in just a second. But in addition to that Tuesday afternoon meeting, we've added a Wednesday afternoon meeting to respond to the federal stuff that's got a little bit of a different audience. So now we've got Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon weekly meetings to kind of deal with legislative issues. One state, one's federal. And so it's requiring a lot of attention, but it's needed attention. So I share that with you to help you understand that we aren't ignoring this. And that's what's, it's that fluid right now that I don't have good answers for you. This is the process that we are going through. And as we learn more, we'll move forward. The guidance we receive is around just not overreacting. And so we've got good processes in place to review our policies. Most of our policies are pretty new. The Dear Colleague letter definitely has us looking at the work we do around DEI. And as I shared at last month's meeting, this is a difficult thing for community colleges, because we have been the great equalizer for generations. Before DEI language became, weaponized, what we did was we helped build the American middle class. We took people who didn't have access to education and have been able to provide that. How that's articulated and how we demonstrate that's kind of the question that's a little under siege now. I suspect we will hit a little bit of calming in some time to come, but I am fully committed to our institution's efforts to continue to be, for the community we serve, the great equalizer. We will help make sure that people have access to the education to become the needed workforce in our region. And, we have historically accepted 100% of the students who apply. We'll continue to support 100% of the students who apply and the needs that they have to be successful. What that looks like by policy, by definition, will be the work we have ahead of us and that we don't know. One of the bills, and I'm ashamed I don't have the bill right in front of me, that is set to impact this board, that is getting a lot of conversation in Salem, is around and it's been brought forward by legislators in Portland. It's dictating to community college boards that we will have a voting student member, which is a little abnormal. There are a number of schools that have, when we discussed having a student member, but usually it's ex officio. There's some challenges around, but what happens if you have a 4-4 vote and some of those questions coming up. The bill also includes giving some supplemental support to the ability to provide supplemental support to board members. I think it's up to $500 a month, in addition to reimbursement for charges, which most colleges already have reimbursement for direct charges as part of policy. It also requires an up-down vote on all associations
Yes.
that a college, both state and federal, would be a part of. And we, OCCA has taken the position of being against this, and it's not that it's against everything in spirit, but it's kind of a sweeping bill that's setting a precedent. For example, it's adding to a board a non-elected individual. It's not so much that it's a student. And part of what they brought forward was, well, but there's students on the university boards, and there are, but those boards are appointed by the governor. So what we have is statute that says we are to have elected boards. And now we're saying, well, but we're going to add one board member who isn't elected. And not all schools have elections. So identifying who their student representative could or would be difficult. We've had a couple students on student government. I suspect if you talk to Christian, who's no longer with us, Christian is a great advocate for our students. I think being a member of a public meeting would be of less interest to him, and he might not choose to be student body president if that's a role he had to fill. So like those are types of conversations that we tend to have, but mostly the reason we're against it is this is an example, and there are a couple of bills living in Salem right now where people are volunteering bills that are directly targeted toward community colleges without having talked to the community colleges or talked to the association. So we're running around trying to figure out with the nominating legislators, like what inspired this bill? Like why is this bill necessary? How come we couldn't have had a conversation about this topic? And even if a bill were necessary, right now there's modifications or amendments being made to some of these bills because they didn't talk to us to make maybe a bad bill less bad, kind of thing. But what we're realizing is our voice in Salem isn't probably what it needs to be when we're seeing bills come kind of this way. So the state association is taking that responsibility on, and I think with the leadership we have there, I feel confident. But so in addition to the budget limitations we have these policy, legislative things coming forward that we're like, why is this necessary for the community colleges whose experiences are driving this? And some examples, in some instances, we kind of know what they are. So those are the less fun things that are consuming a lot of time. And moving to the fun things, the second half of my week last week, I got to attend with many of our RCC members of our RCC family, our Student Success and Retention Conference. It goes on at the Sheridan right next to the airport in Portland. And we have a history of having a strong presence at the conference. We bus a group up there. We've done the math and found out that busing is cheaper than paying mileage for everybody to drive themselves. But there's a spirit and an energy that goes with being on the bus. And so this year, for example, there were 430 registrants for the conference. Unfortunately, with the weather, what happened was they were talking about canceling the conference. However, about 250 of the attendees had already checked into the hotel, and the hotel was ready to serve. So what ended up happening was we had a conference for about 250 people who were all trapped in a hotel, and all the commuters from all the metro schools, their colleges were closed, so they were unable to attend. So it was a good conference, and RCC, because we traveled our folks up there, we had a very strong representation. I think we had 8 sessions that were led, or RCC folks were panelists, and I got to attend many of them. And I have to tell you, you should be really proud of our people. They represent our college phenomenally well. The sessions are well attended. People want to know what's going on, and they're definitely taking notice to the culture we're creating, the work we're getting accomplished, and that is directly, people's ability to align their work with our vision. So I was very proud to witness the great work that our folks do. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that at the conference, one of the co-chairs and driver of much of the work was Nicole Secreta. Nicole did a great job making sure that the show went on despite the weather. And I know that those who were in attendance had a great time. And I will stop there and conclude my report with that. There's always enrollment stuff I can give you, but it's kind of a quiet month because we're in the middle of a term and we'll start registration. As you can see from April's outfit, you get your reg on with neon. So we're getting registration going this week for spring term. Any questions?
Randy,
Yeah, Maria.
hi, thanks for that. You guys, I saw some pictures that Vern took of the conference. It looks like you guys had a great time. So I'm glad you're able to make up for the snow and the weather. I do have a question about the impact of the executive orders on our students. I know there is a lot of angst, broad angst, and I know that we're doing the best to sort of walk this really fine line between, not responding, to not swing so broadly with all the changes, and to be thoughtful. But I'm wondering what support students are getting as they as they manage all of this too.
Yeah, it's a good and fair question, Maria. I think part of the answer is some of the support is organic. So we're seeing things like ASG lit driven things. We know that a targeted population is highly concentrated with our pre-college GED students. And so making sure that department feels like that they've got support to help a number of their students. I had a conversation prior to the election with a number of our student leaders where one of the comments made was, we feel like our college is the safest place in our community for us. And subsequent conversations since the election, I've really kind of embraced that and said, there's nothing I want to do more than to give you promises, but there are promises that I probably can't make and deliver in this uncertainty. But the promise I want to make you is that we want our college to remain the place in our community where you feel safest and most included. And so what does that look like? How are we doing that? That's kind of the work in progress. But that's the self-expectation that we have. I struggle with, and I talk to a lot of other college presidents around, what messaging do we send? How do we send it? When do we send it? How often? And it's we're sensitive to when you comment on everything, you lose kind of a voice, or when you comment and you can't deliver a clear message. And so trying to get, I'm hoping maybe as some of these conversations align around what the state's expectations are and how we're pivoting them around the executive orders, we can bring some clarity to how we're able to deliver a message or experiences to our students and to others in our campus community. That's the hardest thing. And so I answer that to say there are supports being given. Most of them are given organically. The clarity that some are looking for is just clarity today we just can't give. We point out, so like, for example, the FAFSA equivalent that's done in Oregon by a number of students who are targeted and many of these recent efforts is called the ORSFA. And the state of Oregon collects the information to submit the ORSFA, and they will not, absent a subpoena, share that information with the federal government. However, we also understand that there are going to be students who are scared to self-identify. We have students who historically would have been FAFSA eligible, but in order to be FAFSA eligible, they might have to document somebody in their household who is undocumented. And in doing so, they're going to bring attention to themselves. So the likelihood of that individual filling out a FAFSA, even though they're FAFSA eligible, may decrease. If that student didn't get the aid, they need to be successful in school. So there's an absolute ripple effect. And I will just say, the last time the current administration was in office, we saw a declining enrollment and particularly in our Latinx population. And I'm sad to say, I'll be surprised if that doesn't hold true this time around again, even though we'll do what we can to combat that challenge. Roger.
I'm hearing anecdotally, appointments at doctor's offices are down and, these things. Have we seen any impact at all, let's say in the attendance in these PED classes, whatever, that's particularly well populated by that?
We've been trying to track that, and right off the bat, we didn't see it. Now, we're in registration period. And so I think that's the question, is what's registration gonna look like and moving forward? And to be honest with you, I haven't checked in the last week or so, but the first time I asked, we hadn't seen a decrease in attendance, and a number of schools have, and maybe we have more recently, but that's exactly what's happening is you're seeing people who, have sought out education so that they can do better in the job that they have and say, I don't know that I want to bring attention to myself or be present. And that's something we're trying to deal with. And we, like I said, that's an example of where questions are being asked and we just can't make their promises. We can't make.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Welcome, Indra. Glad to see you in person.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right, senior leadership team. You rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first.
I'll go first. Talking all night. The transportation project, the RFP went out and it closed on the 6th, and so we'll be reviewing those bills very soon. That's the only other thing I want to bring up. You've heard about audit and budget, is the bookstore. We moved to eCampus this term. It started in December. As with any time you change stores or things, there's a few bumps, but it sounds like it's gone pretty well. They're very responsive to the changes we've asked for. And we're with our new system and their system learning how to get the data to go back and forth so that we have everything we need online.
Just a quick question, Lisa. I noticed somewhere buried in the reports that Jody has moved on somewhere, but she's coming back to, could you she's been so vital to these projects when some major contracts are in place. Who's handling that now? Is Jody back dealing with it?
So, no. Yes.
Okay.
So, Deborah Watson, she's our new director of procurement. She is the one who is helping to handle these and working with Greg. We do have an individual in Greg's office that also helps with different purchasing contracts. But Deborah really handles all the major RFPs.
Okay.
Jody is on a 19-hour contract. She thankfully did not want to completely retire. She just wanted to be in the back office and not available to others. And so she's available to Deborah. They're on Teams all the time. And so
Yeah, there's a ton of knowledge there that is hard to lose.
very much so. So she's still helping out, but
Yeah. All right, thanks.
it's not every day, all day.
Yeah.
So, as you could tell from our report, there's a lot and a variety of things going on in the People, Culture and Safety Division right now, from thousands of safety and OSHA related inspections to marketing and communications, support for winter registration campaigns, to the successful launch of NeoEd Learn, our employee training platform, which as of this morning, 44% of all employees have completed their annual training early. So that's very exciting. And it's so nice to be able to see it on a clear dashboard. As well as information related to what Dr. Weber shared in terms of federal and state updates that we're very much involved with and a part of from a leadership perspective. I welcome any questions you might have about anything within the reports. I laughed inside when Randy said quiet? Did you say it's been a quiet month? Maybe you meant that in a very particular way.
Oh, I don't know.
His-
I definitely don't feel like quiet, so what if I said that, I said it wrong.
Lots going on, as always in ours, a few things to highlight. Our Director of Dental Programs is talking with Grants Pass High School about dental assisting, excited about the opening of e-building in the fall and having students lined up for programming, so we can put that together. That'll be a great opportunity for our Grants Pass students to access that program. There were some updates in here on the College Now numbers. Those are the classes students take in their high schools from their high school instructor. And I know if you watched historically, like during the pandemic, those numbers went way, way down. So she has 500 in there now. And if we look like today's numbers are a little bit higher, you compare it to last year at this point in time, and like around a 27% increase in the number of students that are accessing credits in high school. So really excited about that. And we're just seeing that jump up every year. We've dedicated some resources to that work, and it's showing that students still want access to these credits. And so that's great to see them back in those courses again. Any question? Trade-ins.
Yes, I do. Anyway, you mentioned e-building, and I haven't been in that building in quite some time. I'm curious, before when the construction is complete, you're gonna be able to find a time to maybe take the board through there, just to get a feel for before and after. Some of us saw the before, and I'd like to see the after.
We'll make that happen.
Okay,
Maybe April or June board meeting before the workshop, we could just carve off some
okay,
time.
that would be great. Okay.
Yeah, I've been in there a couple times. It's quite a transformation from what it was before. So
That's good. Okay.
very impressed with what they could do with a odd shaped space to make it quite usable.
That's one way to put it, yeah.
Community workforce in Lisa Parks areas got CNA on the road again, all the way up to Glendale. So that's pretty exciting, and how we're bringing programs out to the students. Certain things you can't always get everybody here, but there's certain programs we can bring to them. And so that's a great opportunity for students in that area to access that program. You look in there, other recruitment activities and people out and about, lots of people going to Allied Health demo days. If you look at, those are extremely popular, and the dental hygiene program has provided some students to do some more interesting activities with them. So you can see some pictures with some people and stuff.
So I want to talk about the Glendale. Was there any territorial issues with UCC?
We had to work it out, like
Okay.
give permit, yeah.
Yeah, we had to ask, but they weren't able to accommodate those students. That's still easier for them to
Yeah.
bus to us a couple of times rather than.
I thought that was great. That's great outreach. I mean, good job. The other question I had was for IT and the fishing expeditions.
Yes.
When will they ever learn? I mean, didn't you just have a campaign a couple months ago where you?
Thankfully, the list of repeat offenders is small.
Anybody in this room?
We don't shame.
We don't shame people in public.
No negative reinforcement. And the amount, the percentage of people who voluntarily take the training when they have oopsed
Yeah.
is high.
Good deal.
So those are the two factors that we are very happy to see. And admittedly, we as an IT team are getting more crafty in what we're putting together because we've seen our population get more focused and smarter. So we are being challenged in what we put together and send out. So there's a kind of balance that happens there. Will we ever get to the 0 people get caught? Probably
Yeah.
not. But people are definitely learning.
Keep up the good work, because that's an important thing to get people used to being careful.
Yes, definitely.
Any other questions for the leadership team? Yep, I was guessing since he's not here, we probably aren't going to have a report from him, but Cass for the foundation.
So you all have the report, but as of today, our invested funds are at $19,424,863.74. So it's always exciting to see those numbers grow.
the scholarships and stipends awarded this school year to date, and we'll expect to award more. We're at $1.5 million. So that's also exciting. We have deposited the $369,000 check from the 320 acre Stringer Gap property. And we are in a 30-day due diligence period for the 36 acre property for $200,000. So all told, once hopefully that all goes through without a hitch, that'll give us about $549,000 to invest for Stringer Gap that will go towards those high school students in Grants Pass School District for their credits while they're in high school. I just want to bring up to you to please, Board of Education, to hold the date for March 27th for our meet and greet, and be expecting this week to get an invite, and that'll be at Danson Vineyards from 5 to 7. And that'll be with the Board of Education and the RCC Foundation, E-Team, and others. So I just wanted to bring that up too. Also, the Board of Education, the RCC Foundation did vote to award or to pay for the $16,000 to go towards winter and spring term for the dental hygiene fees.
Any questions? All right, thank you so much for your updates. We're moving on to our board action and information items. And we'll start with the monthly financial data report. Questions for Lisa? The Lisa show tonight? Good, all right. So our next ones are first reading on the tuition rates that were presented to us earlier as a part of the budget assumptions. Do we need to have action on that or just first reading information? Okay. Just making sure. And we were able to ask our questions during the work session, so thank you for that. All right. Moving on to the
C.
Well, C is the fees, so we kind of did the tuition rate and the fees. Go for it.
Is there anything on the fees? Do you want to see the full? I did not put the full fee schedule on here.
I think just the
Anything
changes
else?
are,
The changes are okay?
and answering the questions earlier helped a bit. Any questions from the board on fees or the tuition? Okay. All right, and then we are looking at the revised board policy BP 3430 prohibition of harassment. This is goes back to the 2020 version of Title IX. Any questions for Randy before we approve the first reading?
So for clarity's sake, this is a first reading, but we are gonna ask for approval tonight
Yeah.
since this is, you can see the dear colleague letter that precedes it, pretty clear expectations of us federally.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right. Looking at board policy BP 3433 prohibition of sexual harassment under Title IX. Same deal.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We talked at length last board meeting about our team agreements and that we would be acknowledging them this month. In the meantime, were there any comments or anything to you, Randy, on the agreements?
I heard none.
All right, I would entertain an acknowledgement of our agreements.
So moved.
So moved. Okay,
I'll second it.
second it. I think the rest of us are in agreement to
Yeah.
Maria to acknowledge our board
Yeah,
agreements.
yeah.
All right, our next one is G, accepting the 2023-24 audit. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Step in YouTube.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. All right, to the State of Oregon Plan of Action letter. We want to do a little presentation on it before we do the action.
I used to have known this at first time I read
Once you do a presentation, then we'll make a motion.
So in my history, this is the second time I've ever had that I remember a financial finding on the audit. And the first time was when I became the first director and we did not have an allowance account, nor could we afford an allowance account for our AR. And that's why it was my first finding. So this is a finding, as Kristen indicated, we had 2 different entries the auditors found. This is a new requirement with the state of Oregon that was put in place a few years ago. So when we have a yellow book finding, which this is an internal control weakness, we need to tell the state what the finding is and then how we're going to correct it. And so our corrective action is, again, when we are switching to the ERP, there was a lot going on. There was some confusion. So we will be making sure that we fully understand how to do the year-end process. And then double checking all the audit work papers before we shift those off to the auditors to verify things have not been double counted.
All right, thank you for that. I would entertain a motion to approve
I
the.
will move to adopt the State of Oregon Plan of Action letter.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, and then in our packet, we also have the 2025-26 district budget committee timeline. I would entertain a motion to
Move
approve it.
approval.
Roger moves. Pat seconds. Any discussion? Okay, those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Are you opposing it or are you saying aye?
Saying aye.
Okay, just double checking. There was a little lag there. So just making sure. All right. We have, see no new business. But I do see some old business. I think I'm turning it over to you for that.
All right, let's cross our fingers. All right, so we're getting warmer. And I have a slide presentation that is lagging here, so it'll be a little fun to get through. You have hard copies tonight of this. My goal is to get through reintroduce some information that won't be new to you, but to give you kind of an understanding of our intent to move forward and what some of the updates will be along the way. This isn't something we're looking for in a vote from the board on, but as long as there seems to be an understanding and support of us heading this direction, that's fine. If there's a consistent concern from the board, we can huddle back and kind of regroup and come back to you. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about oh, sorry, bear with me. The reminder that when we look at our capital projects and our efforts, we have a couple things that we look at and Greg's brought to you our facilities condition assessment, FCA is what it's called. And there are 4 kind of categories we look at with that: recurring capital equipment, non-recurring, recurring capital equipment, non-recurring, and capital construction. And as we look through those, I will point out here that we have a roadmap for what we plan to spend for these by category in the upcoming years. What I will point is this is one of those things where, like, if you look at recurring here, you see the first 2 years are pretty front loaded where the back 3 are kind of backed off. most likely these get updated annually. The numbers will tend to grow, but it's based on this work and our capacity to do this work. These first three categories are numbers and efforts that we will see built into our annual operating budget. There are times where if we had a bond or we had another large project going on, we might be able to pull some of this work into that. But this is to demonstrate to you that we don't ignore deferred maintenance. We keep and pay attention to what the condition of our facilities are so we can maintain them and not have severe deficiencies moving forward. Capital equipment, again, these are numbers you've seen in prior months, so I won't spend a lot of time on them. Kind of some holes there, and in future years, they will be filled in as we anticipate what those needs are. So like 25, 26, doesn't have anything in it. But that might be something as we move into the budget process gets populated. Non-recurring, same logic, same principles by campus and how we move forward to it. So to demonstrate that we kind of move there, if we were not to add to it, and you can be confident we will add to it over time, we're projecting to have over the next 5 years, $12.7 million in expenses. And so, for example, one of the expenses that is in our budget for this year, that's a large one, is the TRCA roof. And the TRCA roof we put off to wait until the bond, because it would have been included in the bond work, and we didn't get it done with the bond work. And now we've got a lot of other projects and short staffing going on. So the likelihood of getting that roof done this fiscal year is very low, because we have to do an RFP and that takes time. So it's work that needs to be done, but sometimes these projects kind of get pushed down the road just because of our capacity to do it. But rest assured, if there was a need and urgency to get it done, we had a leak, we had a failure in a system or something like that, we would create some urgency around that. But this is how planning and that works. So what that leaves us with, and the kind of those categories, is capital construction. And capital construction is effort that does not get built into the regular operating budget. We had our bond measure that was on the ballot in November for some capital project opportunities to leverage local taxes. That was unsuccessful. That said, we still have efforts that need to be done. As a quick reminder, that the bond measure included initially about 80 million, it landed about 85 million in projects that were identified that could be supported. So with the unsuccessful bond measure, as I shared in prior months, we still have priority projects that need attention. And so this list here reflects the priority projects as they've been identified. What you can see is priority number 1 is transportation technology, and that's leveraging our state capital grant that's already been awarded. We have taken some reserve money and put it aside because it requires, so what happens is this spring, the state will sell the bonds, which is a 7 million match of theirs. But the only way they'll do that is if we move and allocate that our match money, so they know that it's there before they sell the bonds. So we've moved 9 million. As with inflation, we're anticipating this project probably could cost north of 16 million to bring it to both counties. So that's project number 1. Lisa referenced the RFP for that architectural work is the deadline's passed, so we'll do the evaluation of that work. So that will move forward. Then you see priorities 2 and 3 and some target costs potentially for those. And what we're looking to do is shift the concept here, where what we want to do is know what our capital projects moving ahead are and will be. So as we hit those state capital fund eligibilities, we have as close to a shovel-ready project as we can. Because when we don't, we sometimes push it off to future bienniums, which pushes our future eligibility deadline forward, but it also increases the cost of construction. So the project's going to continue to increase. So this is our attempt at getting some planning work ahead of schedule versus saying, well, let's wait till we get an approval from the state, then we'll start some of the planning work. The other thing that this strategy does for us, it allows us to build some capital campaign efforts and do some fundraising things through the foundation figure out what funders might be interested in supporting these projects and ways that we haven't in the past. If we don't have something tangible that we can take to prospective donors, it's really hard to sell a concept on words. We need to sit down with them and show them what it is. So that's part of what this list includes. So what's new to this conversation is, well, how would we fund some of these? So the penciled in soft number for total priority capital is just north of 38 million. We have 7 million in bonds being sold by the state for transportation technology. As I said, we put 9 million of our reinvestment reserves aside already in this fiscal year. We are looking at, and this is just a placeholder, number 12. Pat referenced earlier one of the requests for this legislative session is to increase our capital match of the state. Right now, the cap is $8 million, and we're asking them to move it to 14. So we have 12 in here as a placeholder to kind of push and do that. So we will know more about that. But what I will point out here, and you can see on this timeline here, is this isn't for this upcoming biennium. This would be for the 27 to 29 biennium. We would need to do an application the fall of 26, 27. And man, that feels like forever away. But once we start capital planning and the process in that, fall of 26 will be here before we know it. So we would apply in fall of 26 for a project that we've identified from those priority 2 lists and potentially priority 3, but probably those priority 2 lists. That would be a project to be approved. And if it got approved, we could ask them as soon as it's eligible to sell those bonds. We would figure out where the match money would come from, and we could start the work a lot swifter and not wait 2 and 3 extra years. Most of those projects are tied to better leveraging Table Rock campus. And we have a lot of square footage at Table Rock, which has been our fastest growing CTE campus over the last several years, that we underutilizing. So the project would be designed around that. So you have that placeholder there. Lisa's plugged in a number here for the potential sale of the G building in downtown Medford for our long timers, right? That's the old Montgomery Wards building. But it's also an old administrative building for us. And when we were at our enrollment peak, we ran a lot of our administrative support through there. And then when we decreased, we didn't feel it. But now that we're ramping up again, we're finding we do not have place to put people in Jackson County. We're having a hard time in Josephine County too. But in Jackson County, it is very difficult to run enrollment services, to office our regrowing support staff. And so people, like, as enrollment grew, I think the questions came up, well, where are you gonna put enrollment downtown? Well, truth be told, we're doing a pretty decent job with classrooms for the time being. It's the people that support the classes that we're struggling with. And so what that leaves is you see projected need of just half of about $6.5 million. And there's a couple different sources we can go to for that. We can apply for grants. We can look after philanthropy. But what we want to do is start to put together the concept of what this project would look like and get it more street ready, knowing that we're on a timeline like this. One of the things that we asked is our friends at Piper Sandlin who help us with financing when we do bonds and other finance efforts, is what would it look like if we were to take out debt, just to get some concepts. So here what we have is what debt could look like what this reflects is a 10-year amortization of $10 or $12 million. And particularly the way the blue looks like is what your annual debt service would be if you paid equal payments over 10 years. So for $10 million, it would be $1.3 million annually. For 12 million, it's 1.5. The orange columns reflect, and I apologize to anybody who's color challenged. What the orange reflects here is if during the first 5 years you essentially paid interest only. And a reason a school might do that is, you know, for example, what we do is we hold on to our reserves and let our reserves make interest. So you're sitting on your reserves to match against that. The other reason it's a popular strategy is if you're going to go out for a future bond, you could pay yourself back for this debt if you structure it correctly. So you could say we did this work and part of our bond proceeds would go back to pay off the principal that's still due. And so you know, what I can tell you is if we saw ourselves taking on debt to accomplish something like this, and we chose a strategy where we were doing essentially interest only those first couple of years. So following the second column, the 5 years for 10 million. If our first 5 years payment was $540,000, what I would tell you is year 6, we would not be prepared to pay $2.3 million in debt payment. What we would do is we would look to restructure that and then go back and leverage our reserves. So we're sitting on those reserves. And so what we would do is we would buy down that debt, but it gives us a couple options to buy down that debt, either using our reserves or potentially using future bond proceeds, but it gives us some options to do that. So we wanted to show you a little bit of what financing, we don't typically take on debt as a college. It's not a high priority for us. But better leveraging what we've got on our campuses is a priority. So Lisa and I wanted to look and say, what does it look like to take something like this on? So next steps that we're planning to take is, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is really kind of informational piece at this time, is that the May and June board work sessions will be dedicated to an update in May from Greg on the facilities conditions assessment like we saw a year ago. And then in June, an update on the capital on some of this work that's got a little more detail in it from Greg, along with what a capital campaign from the foundation, the components of that could include. We're in the process of initiating work on the Transportation Technology Center. So what that looks like, we've got architecture and that going on. Once we have something that we can take on the road, we'll start working with potential funders. We may apply for some grants. We'll go to local supporters and ask if they want to have interest in supporting transportation, but we've got that tangible product to take out there. And then we'll begin architectural design for the remaining priority projects to really start figuring out how do we best leverage, especially when you're talking about a redesigning of existing space. It's often harder than just doing new construction. So you get people together. What do you do? How do you want to tie it? So some of that work will begin. Time frame is we would apply for during the fall of 26 or spring of 27 for the next state capital grant that would be awarded in the 27-29 biennium. And so what I want to point out lastly is this is work that we feel is important to meet our existing needs. Part of what we learned through the bond measure is that we want to involve the community in comprehensive facilities master planning efforts, and with that can be, if done correctly, in line with the work we need to do for our next strategic plan. So we kind of want to do an environmental scan for our next strategic plan, then that will help us say then what facilities do we need. So a facilities master plan is on the horizon for what would and could be included in the next bond measure or other community. But what I'm trying to articulate here is that we plan to move forward with the infrastructure for this work preceding that. This is something we've got enough of a pulse on that we know we can start it now before we talk about what is the future best leveraging of square footage or new buildings. What does the future look like? Do we have more remote learning that we don't necessarily need new buildings? Like those are all things that we'll learn through the strategic planning process. But today we know just getting the square footage, the empty space that we have, better leverage. One of the prime examples we use is we do not have science labs at TRC, and we are screaming for need of science at TRC. It's our allied health campus, and allied health students need science, and they can't take it there. So that's an example of one of the many needs that we have there. So that's what we're looking at timeline wise, and I think I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions on our work with that?
Just one, Randy. I think what I'm seeing, when I look at these, priority, listing is that, does this mean that the welding would move from existing building into that new building that we bought here a year or so ago? Is that what I'm seeing? Is that D building?
Yeah, so the D building would be looking at some of that manufacturing technology and moving that industrial tech welding, some of the machining stuff over into there. And then what that can do is free up space in the current B building for apprenticeship. And then if we move apprenticeship out of the A building, we can put more traditional classroom lecture type things in that building. So one of the interesting things is we outgrew some of that space shortly after we moved in.
I know
And
that.
welding is a good candidate for that. So
Okay.
that's an example of responding to our current need with the resources we have available to us.
Okay, so that D building, what you're visualizing right now is all of the welding that's now in B building, okay, would move out. So that would create some space in there. What else is gonna go into the D building then? The manufacturing?
So machining, we're gonna give examples.
Okay, so,
Manufacturing and welding would move into the larger space.
right,
in the Building.
okay, all right. Is that
Some of
enough
the
to take?
apprenticeship Also.
Okay, is that enough to take that entire D building or, I mean, it seems like that building's fairly large. Okay, all right. So essentially that would be the sole purpose of that D building. Okay, great. Thank you.
The nice thing is because it was manufactured, it's got the electricity already
yeah.
plumbed, to which is often one of the heavy costs.
Sure, you bet.
Can I ask a question? When we looked at the financing options, where'd you get the interest rate?
So it's bank placed and so paper.
Wondering, wouldn't it be better for us to like issue tax-free bonds and?
It would be a longer process, more expensive, out of pocket costs to pay for going out for a bond. So for something 12 million or less, you probably want to do bank placement. If we were going to do 25
Yeah.
million at you.
Granted,
Yeah. So the interest rates would be different
because, at this rate, you probably get it down to in the threes.
potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, for a tax-free. But like you said, it's a pretty small number.
It is, yes.
And the legal hurdle is pretty high.
Mhm.
So you would think that $12 million just amount to more than that, wouldn't it? Yeah, okay.
Any other questions for Randy? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. We'll approve the consent agenda in one motion. Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It will be necessary for us to move into executive session to talk about labor negotiations and real property transactions. You want me to read this part now? Or, all right, moving on. Pulling the plug. Right. Right. We are back in general open session and we are at roundtable. So Pat, we'll start with you.
March 4th and 5th Legislative Summit at Salem. If you can go, you gotta go. It's worthwhile going. Are we gonna have any students?
Yeah, we've got a couple students planning to go up and we're working on trying to get some legislative appointments scheduled for the 6th.
Yeah, so I'm in, so just, and a lot of anxiety going on right now about the Department of Education, what's gonna happen to it. I know, it's I think it's fairly recent department. It was founded by the Carter administration. So back in the 70s, so there's, that's how long that story. I don't know what's gonna happen there, and of course, it makes it hard to plan anything, so there's a lot of just angst about it. I felt angst at the last board meeting that everybody we don't know what we're gonna happen here, so. Just dealing with that and maybe going up and helping your legislator feels some angst too, I guess probably be a good thing to do, so. I'll be sharing angst, I think. Well, I don't know what else to do on that one.
I think we should just be positive and look for, opportunity and do what we do best here, which is educate kids and help them be successful.
I've already used up my quota of words.
Maria, anything from you for roundtable?
No, other than to say I will be there in Salem very soon here. Yeah. So I'll follow you around, Pat.
Okay. Thanks, twins.
And I just thank you guys for all your hard work and giving us all this information. It was a very meaty packet this month to read through and it was good. So other than that, we are adjourned.
Good job.
Yeah, great.
I was looking at